What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I was kind of debating on making this video or not today, but I couldn't really let it sit there and fester anymore. I saw a post today that really kind of struck a nerve with me today, and so I wanted to kind of share some of my insight on this. As I was sitting there scrolling through Facebook today while I was working, I saw a woman post that she had high expectations. And so naturally, you start to become intrigued by that. And her expectations were a man that shovels snow. A man that shovels snow like her dad. Her dad would come to her house and shovel her out. And that really struck a nerve to me. And that's not because of women. And it's also not because of expectations. It's because that woman called basic effort a high expectation. And so that tells me, that something deeper was going on. And I wanted to be able to talk about that, without ego, without blaming anyone, and without turning this into like some sort of gender, war, men against women. That's not what this is. This applies to all of us across the entire board. A partner who can show initiative, taking care of like the shared space and shared responsibility, that's not a high bar, that's not a high expectation, that's something that should become basic. Especially to me, my instant thought was, are you fucking kidding me? Like, that's a natural man's job. That would be like you sharing a lived space and living with somebody, and then your expectation is for them to help you put food in the house. Like, you guys share the common space together, you guys live together. That should be just basic necessity. And so, again, just even shoveling snow, that's just baseline adulthood, manhood, being a grown-up. So when something like that felt too much, especially for her to post, it's not because her expectation is unreasonable, it's because the people being chosen don't have the capacity to meet it. And then instead of questioning the pattern, certain people lower the standards or label it unrealistic. And that's where a lot of things start to get twisted. But here's what I honestly wanted to say out of pure honesty and pure truth. And I can't, sit here and say, well, women need to just choose better. Like any other misogynistic person could tell a woman that they need to choose better. This same rule applies for all of us, because I've done the same exact thing, just on the opposite side, on a different perspective. A man who values peace, regulation and stability, especially myself, living with PTSD, but yet I repeatedly chose women who couldn't protect that peace with me. So this isn't about a gender war, it's about recognizing the pattern. The same pattern that's inside you is the same pattern that you can find in life itself. So here's the lesson that most people miss. Expectations don't feel too high. They feel too high for the wrong person. When someone keeps choosing those partners who avoid responsibility, who need reminders for everything, who disrupt peace instead of helping co-create that peace, the basic standards start to feel incredibly extreme. Instead of asking, why am I drawn to people who can't meet me here, normally people ask, why are my expectations so high? I'm not asking for much, and that's the wrong question. Many of these patterns aren't really conscious. You're not very fully aware of it. Those patterns normally stem from your nervous system conditioning, your trauma familiarity, and what normal feels like when it's not healthy. If chaos feels familiar, then the calm side of life feels incredibly boring. If neglect feels familiar, then effort feels incredibly suspicious. If you grew up having to overfunction, you'll attract people who underfunction. You're the one that'll be constantly carrying the weight of it all. And that's not because you're broken, it's just because your system learned what to expect, not what to deserve. And that's a very hard conversation to have. Excuse me. So here is the grown-up truth, the mature truth. High expectations aren't the problem. Having low awareness is. Why do I keep choosing this? What am I tolerating because it feels familiar? Am I calling this love when actually the only thing you're doing is abandoning yourself? Real maturity isn't lowering your standards, it's raising your discernment. Who deserves my time and my efforts and everything? Healthy expectations aren't about control. They're about, initiation without being asked. Accountability without becoming defensive and fighting. Peace as a shared responsibility. Especially in relationships, when you get into a relationship, you two people are the ones that created the relationship. You created that foundation. So to protect that foundation, you must protect the peace that's inside that foundation. And that applies to men and women all alike. A healthy relationship isn't one person carries the load while the other one reacts and abandons it. It's two regulated adults protecting the same life that they're building together. So, if something feels like a high expectation to you, that you know and you feel inside as a basic need, before you start to judge yourself or anyone else, ask yourself this: is this actually unreasonable? Am I asking really too much? Or is it just incompatibility with the pattern that I've been repeating? You no longer want to repeat it, and that is your body trying to reject that. Because standards don't need to shrink, patterns need to evolve. I'm hoping that a lot of this resonated with you, and that you become more aware. And awareness is always uncomfortable, especially, before you start to feel free. Again, if you would like to dive deeper into a lot of why, these topics come to light, especially for me, especially with a lot of the life experience I have, I wrote a book called The Child Called Home, and that is going to be out for sale next week, actually. I have the hard copy coming in later today. The YouTube channel, Spill the Tea, this is what is designed for. It's created for these tough conversations, for all of us to be able to open up, be vulnerable, to share our insight. I also made a resource, and that link is in below. It's on Gumroad. I want you to remember that you're not asking for too much. You're just learning who can meet you where you are. Okay? I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.